Messages to Man by Grieveson, a collection of poems written in exile in South America, 1978. My first book of poetry, Narrow Streets, was written in 1965 and published in 1969. It was descriptive poetry in the vein of Jacques Prévert or Raymond Schuster. My next effort was an epic poem entitled Baba. It was finished in Goa, India in 1967 and published in tabloid format in 1973. Baba described an autobiographical journey through North America, Europe, and Asia. It was still descriptive poetry, but had a continuity to its basically religious theme, a psychic odyssey in search of God. With Baba, the muse of poetry deserted me. I continued to write prolifically, but only in prose. Short stories, novels, and travel guides followed in quick succession, but it was 10 years before the muse stirred my heart again. Messages to Man was written in South America in 1978. It was totally different from anything I've attempted before. In my previous works, philosophical and social concepts played a secondary role to plot development. Of course, these concepts could be inferred from the behavior of the characters, but this depended mostly on the reader's degree of perception, which in turn depended mostly on the reader's willingness to identify with the character involved. In writing Messages to Man, I had two major goals. The first was to present my philosophical concepts as completely as possible within the covers of one book. The second was to present these concepts as clearly as possible, so they would be understood by a maximum number of readers with a minimum amount of work. To do this, it was necessary to avoid the wordy obtuseness common to philosophical essays. Only poetry could combine the clarity and brevity that I desired. As to whether or not I achieved these goals, it would be up to the reader to judge. Belém, July, Brazil, 1978. Dedicated to the RCMP. Where there is no victim, there is no crime. Yet in Canada, over 50% of the prison population has been incarcerated for such offenses. In such cases, the prisoners themselves are the victims, and the criminal is the state, and the judges, and lawyers, and guards, and police, and all those who profit from unjust laws. Dedicated to Timothy Leary. Consciousness is a reality. It is. It cannot be true or false. Reality is what we experience. It is. It cannot be true or false. There are many forms of consciousness. There are many experiences. There are many realities. In this context, such questions as is there a God? What is the true religion? Does astrology work? Become as ridiculous as asking how many angels can dance on the point of a pen. Dedicated to the United Nations. What distinguishes man is his free will, his ability to think and plan his future. Governments which deprive us of that freedom deprive us of the dignity of being men. Dedicated to the United Church. Like a tossed pebble causing ripples in a pool of water, consciousness of self, of family, of neighborhood, of city, of province, of country, of planet, of species, of universe, of God, being conscious of self. Dedicated to Jim Neff. Know you that God is in yourself, and of yourself, and beyond yourself. He cannot be taught, but only experienced. He is the universe becoming conscious of itself. Dedicated to the Pope. If a priest tells you to obey the state upon pain of excommunication and everlasting hell, that man is not fit to be a leader of men. Dedicated to Richard Nixon. If a politician tells you to pick up a gun and kill another man, your brother, or perhaps yourself, he's not fit to be a leader of men. Dedicated to Nelson Rockefeller. If you're so smart, how come you're not rich? Are the poor stupid, or perhaps a little less greedy than the rest of us? Dedicated to Dr. Bacon. The difference between a doctor and a drug addict is a caste society, an ancient guild with the right to script. Dedicated to my first wife, Deborah. In pranayama yoga, there are 12 chakras, or centers of energy. The bottom chakra is Kundalini, the spirit of woman. The top chakra is Shiva, the spirit of man. Man's consciousness coils upwards like a snake through 12 realities. When the spirit of woman rises upwards and unites with the spirit of man, there is an orgasm. Such is the ecstasy of being one with God. Dedicated to Sid Stern. Yoga means a path to knowledge. Hatha Yoga is knowledge through discipline of the body. Pranayama Yoga is knowledge through discipline of breathing. Herbal Yoga is knowledge through ingestion of drugs. The right yoga, like paths up a mountain, depends on the man and his position to the summit. Dedicated to the unknown tramp. Buddha said there were 5 stages to a man's life. The first as a child, the second as a student, the third as a traveler, the fourth as a merchant, and the fifth as a sadhu. When a man's sons have grown and taken wives and children, and he feels age in his bones, the wise man will leave his farm to his sons and wander the land and give up the material things of this world so he might enter the next more willingly and with a kinder soul. Dedicated to Paul Copeland, my lawyer. Canada is a police state. My people live in fear of the midnight knock on the door. Houses are ransacked, families are parted, prisoners are beaten, refugees are hunted by the relentless arm of law. Canada is a democracy, our freedom guaranteed by articles of law. We have no political prisoners. All men